Welcome back. You know the drill. The mainstream media drags its feet, pretends everything is fine, and treats the British public like naughty school children who don't know what's good for them. But the cracks are showing. We're watching a clip from Jeremy Vine on 5, and frankly, the panic in the studio is palpable. They're discussing a petition signed by over 1 million patriots who have looked at Starmer's socialist nightmare and said enough is enough. But watch how the panel handles this. They don't see it as a cry for help from a drowning nation. They see it as an inconvenience to their dinner party schedules. Let's get into the thick of it.
But now, is it time for a general election? Get your calls coming in now. More than 1 million people have signed a petition calling for an immediate election, prompting MPs to debate it today. The petition claims the majority of Brits want and need change. Reform has gone up in the polls in the last year. YouGov suggests Reform would have 26% of the vote, followed by the Tories at 19% and Labour at 17%. But it looks like there'd be no majority and we'd end up with a hung parliament. So, Darryl, do you think people really are ready to go back to the ballot box at this point?
Well, no, probably not really. And I mean, it's interesting, 26% is quite poor, actually. It's quite below where they've been polling around 30%. 26% would, in a normal election, be a crushing defeat, probably, for upwards of. So that's interesting. So I think that poll probably tells us that the country is, maybe there's indecision in the country. I think the issue about is there a general election, right, is simply answered by the fact that we had one about 18 months ago. And democracy is really fragile, right? Democracy is under attack at the moment. And us being able to demonstrate that our democracy can function and is robust, and we have elections in the cycles in which we want them to happen, and that we aren't simply chopping and changing, and that we do not live in an era of complete political flux, is really important. I mean, that's something that Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un would point at and go, look, Western democracy isn't working. We have a responsibility, I think, those people who lost the election in 2024, to be gracious in defeat, to be strong and firm in opposition, to disagree with the government as much as you want to, but respect the democratic process. It has never been more important for its survival.
Yeah. Did you hear that condescension dripping from his voice? This is exactly why the legacy media is dying. Daryl Morris sits there in his nice blazer, lecturing the British people about being gracious in defeat. Gracious to whom? To a Labour government that lied its way into power by pretending they weren't going to tax the shirt off your back. This is the classic globalist playbook. Whenever the people get angry, they trot out the democracy is fragile line. They bring up Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as if demanding competent leadership in Britain is somehow aiding our enemies. It is absolute gaslighting. And look at the numbers they try to gloss over. Did you catch that? Reform UK polling at 26%. That is the real story here. In a fair world, that would be the headline. Reform is surging because they are the only ones actually listening to the working class. The Tories are dead in the water at 19% and Labour is collapsing. The establishment is terrified. Morris calls 26% quite poor. Are you kidding me? For an insurgent party to be beating the governing party and the official opposition in some polls is an earthquake. But the political class, represented perfectly by Darryl here, wants you to believe that sticking to the cycle is more important than saving the country. They would rather drive the bus off a cliff for another 4 years than admit the passengers have voted to change the driver. They are hiding behind process because they know they've lost the moral argument. They know the uni party is exposed.
If anything, this petition, Reem, though, the petition triggers this debate. There's not a vote on it or anything, but it shows perhaps a certain level of disquiet. What do you think about this? Do you think people are ready to go back to the ballot box, or do you think people are happy with things the way that they are?
1 million British citizens have signed a petition to say they want change. They want this government to be changed. What's interesting is polling of even those that supported Labour at the election in 2024 are actually saying that they do not like this government and also want change. So, I mean, I think that this government have been an absolute shambles. They promised not to raise taxes, very specific taxes, and they broke every single promise that they announced in 2024.
They didn't do that.
They broke the promises on national insurance contributions. They broke the promises on tax rises. They have failed to reduce public spending. The economic crisis facing Great Britain today is enormous. Public spending as a proportion of GDP is now at about 45%. That means that half of the economy is the government. That is absolutely astronomical, and it isn't affordable because we're going to see public spending increase this year and next year and the year after. So we're going to see tax rises this year and next year and the year after because we cannot afford the current level.
Again, just devil's advocate, Labour are elected on a manifesto knowing when the next general election is going to come, and they haven't had their full term yet.
But they're breaking manifesto pledges. They are breaking what they were voted to do.
Actually, that isn't strictly speaking true. And I think you're perfectly entitled to, and there'll be many people who share your view that they don't like this government, frustrated by this government. You're perfectly entitled to feel that way, and many, many people will. The idea that they've broken manifesto pledges, manifestos actually, they're not legally binding anyway. And maybe they should be. I think that's another interesting conversation. The government actually have gone out of their way not to break manifesto pledges to their detriment. I mean, Rachel Reeves has tied herself in knots around her fiscal rules and around not raising things like VAT and income tax. National insurance rises were on the employer side rather than employee side.
But the unintended consequences of that are less jobs. I'm sorry, no, I don't buy this argument.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree.
You increase taxes on hiring people and you get less people in jobs. Unemployment is higher, less people are in work. 1 in 4 working age people do not work. That is a national disgrace, and it's this government's fault.
But perfectly entitled to believe that. Probably a truth in it. I do think that national insurance rise was probably the wrong thing to do. But very, very specifically, that wasn't a manifesto breach, and it doesn't necessarily lead us to having a general election.
Let's just check in with our lovely viewers and see what they're thinking. Derek in Northamptonshire, do you think we should be going to a general election just now, or should we let Labour take their time as they have on their pledges? What do you think we should be doing?
Well, I think, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is that if it were possible, I would say yes.
Okay.
We should.
Who would you vote for, Derek?
Sorry?
Who would you vote for?
I'd vote for the previous government, Conservative, which is excellent, in my opinion. But, you see, this government really, I think, has demonstrated what probably a lot of people suspected. They're a government of high taxation, whereas I recall the Conservative government said people should be able to keep as much of their own money as possible. And during that period of the Conservative government, we had furlough, uplifting, universal credit, help out with energy bills, help out with cost of living, eating out to help out, all excellent things.
Yeah.
That's my
but are we not in a position where we do need to recoup more taxes, Derek, in order to pay for the cost of some of those things?
No, cut spending.
We're living with the consequences of that, aren't we?
Well, I think that taxes were perfectly fine at the level that they were. I don't think there was any need to increase them. Why was it necessary to put VAT on the private education?
The reality is we have a shortfall of tens of billions to deal with, and I'm pretty sure most people you would meet would prefer us to have as low a tax rate as possible. But the Treasury have a reality that they're dealing with, Derek, and they're going to have to find that shortfall somewhere.
But wasn't it revealed quite recently that actually there was far more money in the government's coffers than led us to believe there was? So in fact they've got a surplus when in fact they said there was a deficit.
And that's why Rachel Reeves was accused of misleading the House of Commons. I've got a very simple solution here: reduce public spending. We don't need to perpetually increase taxes because quite frankly there will be a point where the private sector disappears.
Right.
We are heading down a path towards socialism, and I think it's really dangerous. Why in Britain do we not have growth? We don't have economic growth. What does that mean? It means people aren't at work. It means the pound in your pocket is worth less and less. You can get less for it because the economy isn't growing. The government have increased the size significantly every single day, and that's the problem. So here's what I'd do. I'd abolish the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. I would reduce public spending on pensions. I would say if you are a millionaire, you don't get a state pension. I would say that if you are in work and you have lost your job, then you can get unemployment benefits. If you are offered a job and you refuse it, your benefits are revoked. I think that there are so many aspects of this where the government can
yes,
can I just point out that we did try quite a lot of that sort of libertarian approach, that laissez-faire approach to the economy. We had a budget in 2022 that did that, and it was overseen by a guy called Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss. And
what I'd like to see is
the market's freaked, and we are all poor.
There it is, the ultimate excuse for the managed decline of Great Britain. Listen to how Darryl shuts down the argument. Reem, who, to her credit, is actually making sense about the bloated parasitic size of the state, tries to point out that you cannot tax your way to prosperity. And what is the response? Remember Liz Truss? The market's freaked out. This is the weaponised narrative the left and the wet white Tories use to keep you in chains. They have created a mythology that says if you ever try to cut taxes, if you ever try to shrink the 45% of the economy that is just government waste, the markets, read the global financial institutions and the Bank of England, will destroy you. So, according to this panel, we have no choice but to accept high taxes, mass unemployment and a welfare state that pays people to sit at home. Darryl is essentially saying, we tried freedom once for 10 minutes, the banks didn't like it, so get back in your books. It's defeatism disguised as prudence. And look at the callers. Derek misses the free money of COVID. That's the tragedy right there. The Conservative government of the last 14 years wasn't Conservative. They were socialists in blue ties who addicted the country to handouts. Now we have socialists in red ties doing the same thing but harder. Reem is right. We are heading down a path to total socialism, and the so-called opposition is just arguing about the speed limit while we race toward the cliff edge. The system isn't just broken, it's rigged against the taxpayer.
My mortgage costs more because we attempted
but that's just not true because we did not cut spending.
That kind of economic.
Liz Truss did not cut spending.
That kind of but she wanted to. I mean, you can't do that, can you?
But she didn't.
She ran into exactly.
She
ran into exactly the problem that you would run into, which is that you've got the reality of providing public services.
I've just said you cut spending. She did not do that, so you cannot say what she did was libertarian. She actually increased public spending with the energy price guarantee.
She took a chainsaw to the rules of economics, as you would want to do. The market's reacted, and we're all poorer for it.
Right. Goodness.
But none of those things...
Well done, Derek. Well done on dealing with all the points from the panel, and well done for sparking quite a fearsome debate. Kelvin in London, what do you think about this one? Do you think it's time to pull the emergency cord and have a general election?
I think if we call a general election, it would mean that the whole system has failed.
So you're echoing slightly what Darryl was saying, which is there's a system in place and we should let it play out.
Not so much that. I mean, yeah, we could do that, but long term, to me, we the electorate are losing confidence in the whole political system. I believe that it shouldn't be partisan politics.
Yeah.
I believe people should be elected and just do the job, not Labour, Tory, because you've got a 5-year span. Nothing can be planned within that time.
Kelvin, do you think that this government have been doing a good job?
I mean, so far, I think they're doing okay. They're not doing a great job. And that is the problem, because they're trying to appease everybody, and it can't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your call, Kelvin. I want to just get through some more because we've had lots of calls coming in. Mick in Leeds, do you think it's time for a general election?
Yes, I think it's time for a general election. Well, the first thing is Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer should resign because they are complete and utterly useless. U-turn after U-turn. They attack the elderly. They've attacked the disabled people. He's failed on Trump. Wales is an absolute disgrace. He's not condemned that. Basically, the first thing is, if he hasn't got the guts to resign, then yes, we need a general election. I would personally vote for either the Greens or Lib Dems because they have the honesty and integrity to call out things which are wrong. Mm-hmm. What we need in our politics is trust in Labour. They've let us down on every turn, and it's just unacceptable. So, it is time for a general election if they haven't got the honesty and integrity to resign.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you very much, Mick. Darryl, do you want to come back?
Nothing you have said there, Mick, convinces me that we need a general election, i.e. there is no constitutional crisis. And as I refer to my earlier point, which is really, really important, which is that there are countries around the world who want to disrupt Western democracies, and us being able to demonstrate that we have a democracy that functions, where you, by the way, Mick, are perfectly entitled to believe all of those things, to feel those things, to vote at the opportunities you get them in local elections and mayoral elections and in the next general election, and to come on television programmes like this and make that point as passionately as you have. That is what a liberal democracy is about. But we have to stick to the structures of that liberal democracy, and we cannot just throw the baby out with the bathwater, have a general election and make a point to those rogue states that Western democracy isn't working.
Thank you very much, Mick, for your call. Anne in Devon, tell me what you think about this. Is it time for a general election?
It's not time. The government was actually put into power for longer than 2 years, which it's been. They've got 14 years of absolute rubbish and lies, and how many prime ministers? They passed them around like jelly tots. I mean, come on. It's going to take longer than 2 years to sort this country out. And if the populace can't see that, then this populace is actually a lot thicker and more stupid than I would have said. England. Yeah. Well, UK.
So you want Anne, the Labour government, to be given the time to achieve something?
Yes, I do. I mean, anybody that's been brought in, to sort things out after 14 years of Tory rule, it's going to take any one of them longer than the 2 years they've had. But if people can't see that, they're stupid.
Okay. But Anne, a lot of people would say that things have gotten significantly worse since the Labour Party took over in government. I mean, things weren't great under the Conservatives.
Got better under the Tories, did you, with 14 years of lies and that?
Well, I don't disagree with you, Anne.
No, the Conservatives... Look what happened during COVID with the Prime Minister everybody thought was going to be brilliant. And what did he do?
He lied.
I totally agree. And when it comes
to the problems that this country faces, I mean, looking at the tax burden we've just been talking about, the Conservatives presided over the highest tax burden since the Second World War. So realistically...
but what about the rest of the world? There's loads of countries
Anne, absolutely. And the passion that we're getting through in the calls is quite incredible. Thank you for your call, Anne. I wanted to speak to Alan in Essex, though. Alan, do you think it's time for a general election?
Yeah, long since gone, the time. Should have happened weeks ago.
Right. Why? Tell me why.
Well, do you think Starmer and Reeves have done a good job? Because they've put the country back on its uppers. They've taxed it beyond belief, where that wasn't necessary. The Department for Fiscal Responsibility, or whatever it is, decided to tell Reeves before she even did a budget that the money that she was talking about being in deficit was a pack of lies. There was plenty of money there. So why on earth she taxed everybody to the hilt? It's beyond belief, really.
Okay. Who would you vote for, Alan?
Well, I have always voted, along with the rest of my family and grandparents, for a Conservative government. Labour have always, but absolutely always, screwed it up in one way or another. You've got you've got Brown selling off the gold reserves at the ridiculous amount of money that was lost through that was unbelievable.
So
I think somebody left a note once saying sorry, there's no money left.
Yeah, for sure. Look, and this kind of push and pull between tax and spend is the political conversation we have had for generations and we will have for generations to come. The fact of the matter is that we had an election in 2024, Alan, and you lost. And you are entitled to go again in a couple of years' time and have another go. One of the most important elements of a democracy, though, Alan, is that you are gracious in defeat, that you accept the other side won and you give them the opportunity to govern. And when the time comes around again for another election, which there will be one, you have another chance to have a go at it. That is important for the integrity of democracy. A peaceful transfer of power and grace in defeat is a cornerstone of the integrity of this institution that is democracy that we have to protect.
Well, amazing calls. Thank you all for phoning in.
You see what we're up against? You have a panel largely agreeing that the public is too stupid or too impatient to understand the complexities of governance, while a country burns. They dismiss 1 million signatures as nothing. They dismiss the rise of reform as a fluke. They dismiss the economic reality that you are getting poorer by design, not by accident. They want you to shut up, pay your taxes and wait your turn. But the tide is turning. The sheer anger from those callers, even the ones I disagree with, proves that the consensus is shattered. So, here is my question for you. Do you think we can actually vote our way out of this mess with the current two-party system, or does the entire political class need to be swept away before we can call ourselves a free country again? Drop your answer below.